I hope, inshallah, all of you good and fine and safe. Uh, Yesterday, we were talking about the factors that affecting biodiversity. There are many factors that affect biodiversity, like niche diversity, the genetic diversity, and extinction, climate, and area. All of these factors affect the biodiversity or the ecosystem biodiversity. In the previous lesson or yesterday, we were talking about that the niche diversity has an important effect on the biodiversity of an ecosystem. A healthy ecosystem, reflects a balance between among different populations and their unique niches. And we say that the niche is the role that an organism play in its environment. Every species or every organism in an ecosystem occupies a specific role or a unique niche. It includes how it gets food, okay? Or it's the type of its food. The abiotic and biotic factors or biotic resources are that a species needs to survive are provided by its niche, okay? These resources include food, water, and habitat. Type. The niches of different populations within an ecosystem interact with one another. Some species, like the panda, if you remember, have a narrow niche or live in a narrow niche. That means that this type of organisms depend on a few food in its life. Yani the panda that you see here, this panda has a narrow niche. This type of organisms depends or eats a specific food. These types of organisms will struggle, or they may, if there are environmental changes, or if there are disasters or the environmental changes, they it's very hard for them. It's very hard for them to find food. So, panda have a narrow niche with only a few food sources. Species that have a narrow niche are more vulnerable or subjected to what environmental changes. Okay, a niche can also be shared by two different species. Sometimes two species can share the same niche. When this happens, they compete for resources. Of course, a competition will increase between them. If resources are low, one species may survive while the other must have leave or die out. So the niche diversity, as you see, is very important in the biodiversity. Some species or some organisms that have a narrow niche, they are more vulnerable to environmental changes. If there is no enough food, they will struggle or may die because they have a narrow niche. They eat or depend on a specific type of food. Okay, if two organisms or two species share the same resources or share the same niche, they will compete. Type. A healthy ecosystem reflects a balance among different populations and their uniqueness. The second thing or the second factor that affect the biodiversity is the genetic diversity. What is genetic diversity? Genetic means you have to know that your genes control your your traits, your inherited traits. طيب. Hello Ryan. طيب again.
أستاذ
What are
ريان كنت في الحمام هلا أرجع.
Okay, don't worry. All organisms, plants, humans, animals have genes. These genes contain all of their inherited traits, their properties. These genes are inherited from their parents. For example, your hair color, your face color, your skin, your eye color, all of these are traits. Okay, genes or these traits are stored in genes, and these genes are found in chromosomes inside the cell. Now, the genetic diversity means that is the total number of inherited traits in the genetic makeup of an entire species. Type, how it is related to biodiversity? What is the relationship between genetic diversity and what is the relationship between genetic diversity and biodiversity? This is the relationship. The greater the genetic diversity for the population, the greater its genetic diversity, or the greater the genetic diversity for a species, the more likely it is that a species can adapt and survive. So organisms with a greater genetic diversity are able to adapt to their environment, are able to survive if the environment changes, if the environment changes, if there are disasters or hurricanes, whatever, these species can adapt because they have genetic diversity. Okay, species with low, on the other hand, species with low genetic diversity lack the ability to adapt to changing environmental conditions. So if the species or the population, they have a greater genetic diversity, so they are more likely to adapt to the environment and survive. If the species have low genetic diversity, they will lack the ability to adapt to the changing environment. Like example, look at the cheetahs. Cheetahs here, these types of organisms, the cheetahs, sorry. Okay. Look at these organisms, هذول الفهود أو cheetahs, okay, مالهم? They have a low genetic diversity, which may have contributed to their near extinction status. These organisms or these cheetahs are threatened because they have a low genetic diversity. They are able to extinct or disappear, okay, because their genetic makeup or their genetic diversity is very low. So if the environmental conditions change, they will not be able to adapt. They will not able to adapt. Thank you. Okay, طيب. Look at the cheetahs are endangered or threatened. Scientists speculate that their near extinction, يعني in the future or in the soon, they expect that because of their low genetic diversity, they will disappear. Okay, and because of loss of natural food resources, they may not be able to survive. Okay, طيب. The second factor or the third factor that affects diversity is the species extinction. What is the meaning of extinction? بالعربي معناه الانقراض.
إنه يكون في مثلا a type of animal وخلاص.
The disappearance of all members of a species from Earth is called extinction. يعني suppose, example, just an example. Suppose that extinction happens or cats extinct occur. Suppose that cats extinct or extinction happens to cats. That means all cats on Earth will disappear. The disappearance of all members of a species from Earth is extinction. Okay. طيب, according to fossil evidence or to footprints, do you know what are fossils? Fossils are the remains of organisms.
bones.
يعني you can say that fossils part of an organism or a whole organism that is stored from millions of years. According to fossil evidence, over 90% of all organisms that have ever lived on Earth are now extinct. Oh, it's يعني amazing. 90% of organisms that lived in the past, 90% of them are extinct or disappeared. Okay, the disappearance of all members of a species from Earth is extinction. Of course, do you think that extinction is good for biodiversity? Of course, no. Species in danger of becoming extinct are called endangered species, like the cheetahs here. These organisms, the cheetah, are endangered species because they may extinct in the future. Species in danger of becoming extinct are endangered species. Right. And the species that could become endangered in the near future are threatened species. So you have to distinguish between the three types of species: extinct species, endangered species, and threatened species. Endangered species are those in danger of
أستاذ
becoming.
عيدهم.
نعم.
أستاذ شوي عيدهم.
Yeah, again. Who's talking?
أحمد العزام.
Right. We have three species: extinct species, the species that disappeared, اللي هم already اختفوا. The disappearance of all members of a species from Earth is called extinction. Can anyone give me example for species that are extinct?
The dinosaurs.
Yes, dinosaurs are examples of species that are an obvious example of extinction. Dinosaurs. But there are species that may extinct in the future, in danger of becoming extinct in the near future. These called endangered species, like cheetahs. Wait, Munya. And the species that could become endangered in the near future are threatened species. Right. Munya, do you have any question?
No.
Right. So put your hands down. There are two ways in which species can become extinct. The question is, why some species, wait, Ahmed, why some species extinct? There are two ways in which species can become extinct. Background extinction occurs over a long period of time. It usually involves only one species. It is called background extinction. This background extinction occurs over a long period of time. It happens, it doesn't happen in a few years. It needs a very long period of time and involves only one species. What are the causes of this? The environmental changes or the arrival of competitor cause background extinction. So what are the causes? What causes background extinctions? The environmental changes, the environmental changes and the arrival of competitor. What is a competitor? It is another species that compete with this species for food and resources. Okay? Again, what is a competitor? It is another animal or another plant that compete with this species for food and other resources. يلا تفضل احكي. طيب.
أستاذ أنت ما حكيت لناش two ways. أنت حكيت لنا بس واحد.
أيوه. The first one is what? Background extinction. The second one is mass extinction. What is the difference between on how the mass extinction differs from background extinction? The mass extinction can kill many different species. So this is the first difference. In background extinction, it occurs
only one.
for only one species. The mass extinction for many species. And the second difference that mass extinction happens over or in a very short time, while the background extinction occurs over a long period of time. So the extinction of dinosaurs, is this mass or background? Can anyone answer?
أستاذ عيد السؤال.
The extinction of dinosaurs, is it background extinction or mass extinction?
Background extension.
Who answers?
Me, Osama.
Osama. Why is it background? Because it is for one species. Okay? Background extinction occurs over a long period of time. Dinosaurs extinct over a very long period of time. And it involves one species. So the extinction of dinosaurs is the background extinction. When many species disappear or extinct, this is called mass extinction. Okay, because it can kill many different species and it happens in a very short time. Mass extinctions are caused by what? Rapid climate changes, such as what? Meteoroid. What are meteoroid impact? Meteoroid are objects or bodies that fall from the space. This can kill many species over in a very short period, of time. طيب شباب انتوا فاهمين ولا كيف؟
لا أستاذ أنا
اوكي طيب mass extinctions are caused by rapid climate changes such as from meteoroid impact or continuous volcanic eruptions. By the way, in a volcanic eruption, these eruptions can cover or destroy a very large areas. And as you know, many species live, for example, when there are volcanic eruptions over a forest, it can burn all of the forest and kill a lot of species that live there. And mass extinction may happen. Also, another environmental or climate changes in the air or water. Suppose that the air is polluted or the water is polluted. This can cause mass extinction. So, extinction can be divided into two types or two ways: background and mass. Background extinction occurs over a long period of time, while the mass in a short period. This is the first difference. Background happens to one species, while the mass extinction happens to many species. Okay, the background extinction also caused by environmental changes or the arrival of competitor, while the mass extinction happens by a rapid climate changes, such as meteoroid impact, volcanic eruptions, or changes in air or water. طيب. Please solve for me this homework, and send it for me after after this class. Okay? Why are populations with low genetic diversity like cheetahs are less likely to survive? طيب, please try to answer this question. The second, طيب, there are also other factors. طيب, there are also other factors that affect.
مش واضحة الصورة.
Okay, ماشي مش للاسف التصوير يعني مش مشكله. There are also other factors that can affect the biodiversity in addition to niche diversity, to genetic diversity, to species extinction. The other factors, the climate and size of مش واضحة من مرة الصورة؟ طيب.
في كلمات مش واضحة.
في كلمات مش واضحة زي ما حكى.
The climate and size of an ecosystem also affect biodiversity. طيب, how, let me explain this. Scientists hypothesize that, or scientists hypothesize or think that a consistent climate supports biodiversity. If the climate is stable, it will support the biodiversity. One of the most diverse places on Earth is the tropical rainforest.
الصوت بيقطع.
But one of the most diverse places on Earth is tropical rainforest. Tropical rainforest is the most diverse ecosystem on Earth. It lies on the equator. Do you know what is the equator? Right. In these areas, there are a lot of rain all over the year. And the temperature is, the climate is warm. So plants grow faster. And it can provide a habitat or home for a lot of animals. So it is very, very diverse. It's very rich in organisms. Okay, so why? This is an example of the effect of the climate, because the climate is very good in the tropical rainforest. The tropical rainforest is the most diverse ecosystem or place on Earth. Okay, because there are a lot of rain, a lot of water, the temperature is warm, so many organisms live there. In the tropical rainforest, temperatures do not fluctuate greatly, and it receives a large amount of rainfall. So there are two main reasons that make the tropical rainforest rich or diverse. The first thing, a large amount of rainfall, and as you know, rainfall or water is very important for life. The second factor, that the temperatures do not fluctuate greatly. What is the meaning of fluctuate?
What, teacher?
What is the meaning of fluctuate? ما حدا بيقدر يعرف؟
إنه أستاذ يعني is not strong.
No, يعني the temperatures in the tropical rainforest are always stable, the same. Fluctuate, يعني in other ecosystems, sometimes in winter, fluctuate means شباب انتوا نايمين ولا كيف؟ مش سامع.
أستاذ إحنا معك.
لا.
يعني there is no, in the tropical rainforest the temperature is always stable. They do not fluctuate. يعني in some ecosystems or in many ecosystems the temperatures may drop. Sometimes may drop to 0 or minus. Okay?
Arabic كيف يعني؟
يعني بتصير very cold. Sometimes it may be very cold. Sometimes it's very hot in summer, for example. But in the tropical, okay, in the tropical rainforest, the temperature is always stable, or it is always warm. There's no fluctuations. There's no fluctuations in the temperature. Temperatures do not, sorry, here. The climate is very good. The climate in the tropical rainforest is very good. There are a large amount of rainfall, and the temperatures do not fluctuate. There are no fluctuations in temperature. Okay? Also, plants grow around, year round. All of the year, the plants grow. But here, for example, in Jordan or in most ecosystems, plants don't grow in winter or in fall. The plants start to grow in spring. But in the tropical rainforest, plants grow all over the year, okay? Which provides, when there are a lot of plants, that means there are more food for animals, okay? And ecosystems area, the second factor here, look, other factors like climate, we talked about, or we explained what is the meaning of the climate or its effect on the biodiversity. If the climate is good, like the tropical rainforest, it will survive or support the biodiversity. The second thing is the size of an ecosystem or the area. An ecosystem's area or the amount of space that an ecosystem covers also determines its biodiversity. Of course, if the ecosystem is large, that means there are more space. When there are more space, that means many organisms like animals will find more shelter. The shelter will be available. For example, more species are found in an ecosystem that covers 50 square kilometers than in one that covers 10 square kilometers. Notice that this ecosystem covers, or the area of this ecosystem, 50 square kilometers. But the second ecosystem, 10 square kilometers. Of course, this one, the larger or the bigger ecosystem will support, you can find more species of plants and animals. But if the ecosystem is smaller, you can find less animals and plants. Is it clear? Right. An ecosystem with a larger area will generally have more biodiversity. So in this paragraph, the two factors, climate and size of an ecosystem. If the climate is good, if there are a lot of rainfall, the temperatures are stable, do not fluctuate, that means the biodiversity increases. If the size of an ecosystem or the ecosystem is large, that means it will have more biodiversity because it will support, or there are more spaces available for organisms. That's enough for today. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye, teacher.
Bye.
Bye, teacher.
Goodbye.
Teacher.